Today, I'm going to hopefully tell you something that will change your life like it did to mine. LinkedIn is the next TikTok. There are 4 reasons I believe this. And I'm going to break down and really dive deep into each one of these 4 reasons. But I first want to start with why knowing this can be so important. And it's because of the first mover advantage. When I was on TikTok in 2020, I was fortunate to start a business when others thought it was cringe to post on TikTok, and I was getting made fun of because it was a platform just middle schoolers would post on. But ignoring the cringe made me hundreds of thousands of dollars. And posting on LinkedIn is cringe right now, and it's given me a lot of results. I really want to hone in on this TikTok part, and let's just dive into point number 1 right away. The use case is expanding. TikTok in 2020, or whenever it was started as this lip syncing platform, super niche and mainly middle schoolers. Facebook started as this social network for Harvard people. LinkedIn started as this job board. Are you starting to see the pattern? Even Twitter, that they started with just tweets, and then the tweets expand in character length. Now they're threads, and now they're even videos. It's totally crazy the shifts these social platforms undergo and just expand. And LinkedIn's going to be the next one. But there's a huge benefit to getting on it early, and I can talk about the viral IDs experience right now. And essentially, in 2020, I started a business selling LED lights on TikTok. This is pre-TikTok Shop. A lot of people were on TikTok at the time. So it was a lot easier to post and gain traction on the platform. Because of that, my content, which was super cringe and in today's standards of content would not go viral at all, was going viral. And that was a huge advantage because I could learn and also go viral. It was just the perfect combination. Because think about it, if you know something before someone else, that's an advantage. I have an advantage of posting 100 cringe TikToks before someone else, so I can learn faster than them. Because the real best way to learn how to do something is just to practice it. So those early TikTok days and pushing through those 4 months of cringe content is what ended up making me hundreds of thousands of dollars on TikTok off of selling my custom coded LED lights. And again, this was not a dropship product. This was something I made in my garage and turned into me hiring some of my closest friends, and was a great time. And the reason I tell this story is because that would not have happened if we started posting on TikTok today. TikTok is super saturated, and we didn't have the first movers advantage we did last time. Maybe we still would have made money, but not the hundreds of thousands of dollars in profit we made. And that's why it's so important to take advantage of LinkedIn right now. And the whole point of this number 1 phrase is that the use case is expanding. And I'm proof of this myself. And I'll tell you the story of what I did this summer. I started posting on LinkedIn casually in February of this year, not really thinking much of it. Then the summer came around before I started my job, and I went bananas. I mean, we're talking posting 4 or 5 times a day. It was honestly insane. People were telling me I was crazy for posting this much, but then I ended up getting 3.5 million impressions over the summer. It was nuts. Even though I was posting so much, it doesn't matter what time I posted. I mean, because you're posting 5 times a day, I was still getting a lot of traction. And the reason I was getting so much traction is because I have this first mover advantage on LinkedIn right now. People are scared to just like content on LinkedIn, let alone comment or post even 5 times a day, or leave 100 comments in a week. These are all things I did to learn, and I'm gaining that first mover advantage right now because that's what I did on TikTok in 2020, and it made me a lot of money. It also helped me make a big impact on my community. And that's what I want to do with LinkedIn. One of the big mistakes I made on TikTok was stopping, and I lost that momentum. And looking back, that's one thing I want to do through making all this content right now. I want to make stuff that can last and that I can keep making for the long term. That's why I'm making content about posting on LinkedIn right now, because that's something I'm really passionate about and can see myself doing this for years. I'm also fortunate to have a great support network and Matt Huang, my co-host, and William Lewis, the producer of the show, that we can keep each other accountable and keep each other motivated for when we're not always getting the impressions or views we want. That was a long-winded answer, though, of talking about how the use case of TikTok expanded quickly from just lip syncing to literally building multi-million, 100 million, maybe even some billion-dollar businesses were built off of TikTok. And the same is going to happen with LinkedIn. It was just a job board. Oh, I didn't even talk about place to place. Let's rewind back to the summer too. When I'm posting 5 times a day, I'm promoting this website called Place to Place. And essentially it takes all airports in a 3-hour drive of both addresses you put in, adds in the Uber cost from both addresses to all the airports within a 3-hour drive, adds in the flight cost as well, and sorts by door-to-door cost instead of city to city. And this was awesome. We saved people hundreds of thousands, probably even $1 million, to be honest, because we lost track at one point, and it would also compare it to Google Flights to guarantee you that the cheapest flight every time. We literally hit 10,000 users from posting on LinkedIn in 8 weeks. I would just post like bananas on it. I would post the crazy flight deals we're finding, like going from Allentown, Pennsylvania instead of Newark to get to Japan, and how that saves you, how that's like $800 round trip versus the $2,300 out of Newark, and finding all these crazy flight deals, saving everyone a bunch of money. And this would go viral on LinkedIn when I wouldn't have the same success on TikTok. So growing place to place from 0 to 10,000 users really gave me the conviction that the power is here in LinkedIn right now, and the competition's a lot less, and you can make a much bigger impact than you can on TikTok or LinkedIn, and there's just not as much of a competition. It's honestly fun too. LinkedIn's a very supportive community. Unlike a lot of the other social platforms, you rarely get hate comments or anything like that. It's very, very, very supportive. I've learned as well. So overall, I just want to talk about how in this section the use case is expanding, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but just like TikTok started as the middle schoolers dancing, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, but LinkedIn is not just a job board. My place-to-place experience proved that you can launch a business off of it. You can get 10,000 users on it. And the next person that launches a business this week will probably be able to get 100,000 users in a year. So the use case is expanding for LinkedIn, just like it did for TikTok. And that's reason number one. Reason number two, I think that LinkedIn is the next TikTok, is because LinkedIn has no competitors. TikTok has Instagram, they have, X's video feed now, YouTube Shorts, but LinkedIn doesn't have that. Like even YouTube has Netflix to an extent, but who's competing with LinkedIn? I mean, where would you go to try to find a similar platform? It's the only professional network at scale, really. There are 1.2 billion people on LinkedIn. And what's crazy too is the scale of it, that 73% of the US is on LinkedIn. And that 73% is only 20% of LinkedIn's user base. It is a global behemoth of a platform that a lot of people have slept on. There's no competition to it. When you're on LinkedIn, there's really no other thing. That's why they're getting into games. People are using the games, whether you like it or not. And it's socially acceptable to be on LinkedIn at the office. Whereas if you're on TikTok or Instagram, even if you're consuming very similar content, it's not socially acceptable like it is on LinkedIn. So that's why LinkedIn really has no competitors when it comes to social norms and also competition from actual other social media platforms. There's no one that has a professional network like LinkedIn at the massive scale it does. So that wasn't too big of a thing, but let's move into number three. And number three is the entrepreneur explosion. And the thesis here is that with AI and all these other trends, I mean, solopreneurs are up 12.5% since 2011. 39% of the US workforce is freelance. That was from Upwork, which may be a little bit biased. But the reality is more and more people have their own businesses. They're going to go to LinkedIn to show their portfolios or try to get more work. Because when you want to contract yourself out or try to find more work, you're going to LinkedIn. You're going to post about your experience, how you can add value to other people. And then other people are going to see that. You're not going to post on Instagram for that. You're not going to post on TikTok. You're not going to make a Netflix documentary. You're going to go to LinkedIn, try to connect with people, show how you can add value, update your profile and do all these sort of things to try to get your next client, get your next job or whatever it is. So the overall entrepreneur explosion is one of the other reasons that I think LinkedIn is the next TikTok. And fourth is that B2B marketing is undergoing a huge shift. And I'm realizing that this video is going to be a little bit shorter than I anticipated because I feel like I could talk about this forever. But there are two people that I look up to that I want to quote here. And one is Matt Huang, who essentially is helping B2B founders ghostwrite on LinkedIn and has had huge success with this. Like, it's insane. It's just like place to place. You can scale your startup so fast, especially when B2B on LinkedIn, because everyone doesn't want to admit it, but they're scrolling LinkedIn. They're like LinkedIn lurkers, like I like to call them. They don't really like a lot of the stuff, but they see everything. So Matt Huang is someone I've been looking up to a lot, and I'm fortunate to co-host with him the Connection Accepted show, where we interview a lot of LinkedIn's top creators. But then the other person is LinkedIn's actual CMO, and her name is Jessica Jensen. And I don't want to get her words wrong, so I'm going to read it to you here. Somewhere in history, people decided that businesses were not run by human beings and started marketing to them as metal boxes. The reality is with B2B marketing, people have traditionally marketed B2B as if they're marketing to a non-human, which is kind of ironic. But the reality is when you're selling something to another business, you're selling it to another human at that business who then has to get approval by other humans at the business. It's not like you're selling to ChatGPT or else advertising pretty much wouldn't exist and we'd always go with the lowest cost or best provider. Like we're selling to humans in reality. And a lot of companies are now figuring this out, like ClickUp and having huge advantages on other companies over LinkedIn because they figured this out. And what Jessica's also saying, I think, is that the CEOs right now, they're scrolling LinkedIn just like everyone else. We might be scrolling TikTok and Instagram a little bit more, and they might not be doing that, but they're scrolling LinkedIn. And if you can create compelling content to get on their feeds on LinkedIn, that's a pretty cool opportunity. And even if you're a YouTuber, I've started to notice this after talking to a lot of them. YouTubers are finding their next sponsors on LinkedIn right now, because that's a B2B transaction as well. You're going to another business saying, here's the value I can add by creating a YouTube video about it. And, you should pay me money to sponsor this video. And it's been really fascinating to see, because the reality is a lot of these CMOs and CEOs of companies are not on YouTube or LinkedIn. They're not watching Eric or Dr. Mike's videos. What they're doing is they're scrolling LinkedIn. And if these people are posting about their content on LinkedIn and they're seeing the scale, the CMO and the CEO is like, oh my gosh, we got to do this. And also the CEOs are turning into influencers themselves. I mean, the PayPal thing went viral on LinkedIn about how PayPal is paying their ghostwriter for their CEO $200,000. And a lot of other companies are doing this too. I just want to give one more quote from someone that's pretty famous and I look up to, Stephen Bartlett, the Diary of a CEO. And I don't want to mess up his words, so let me read this here. I tell all the founders in my portfolio that until you've cracked LinkedIn and you've got the system up and running, really don't think beyond that. Again, Stephen has 12.7 million subscribers, and he's telling his founders, until you've cracked LinkedIn, don't think beyond that. And that really spoke with me, because he's not telling them to start a podcast or go on Instagram, go on TikTok. He's telling them to get LinkedIn up and running. And I think it's because LinkedIn's been one of those platforms where we've all been telling ourselves, oh, it's a joke, you can't really become an influencer, or it's plateaued. And the growth has just been very impressive as well. It's been steady, nothing crazy, but they are a behemoth right now. And if Stephen Bartlett's telling his founders to go all in on LinkedIn, we should probably be all in on it too. So to recap this rant on that LinkedIn is the next TikTok, I believe this because the use cases are expanding, which we went into in a lot of detail. LinkedIn is no competition. The entrepreneur explosion and B2B marketing is undergoing a huge shift. The takeaway here is that I built over 200,000 followers on TikTok by going in early. And LinkedIn is having its TikTok moment right now. And I really want you to be able to take advantage of this like I am, so you can have a more positive impact on the world and also on your company and add the most value possible. I truly believe if you post now like I did, your future self will thank you. Because if I can do it without having anything interesting to say, you can too. And just to be clear, these thoughts are my own and not representative of my employer. Thank you all for watching.